Rob, introduce everybody. Where are we at?
Actually,
what are we doing?
We didn't do an introduction the last time we were all together. So if you looked at this set, we'll kind of go around the room.
You got Kyle,
Robert,
Mike on the right of the casting couch.
That's staying in. Sean.
So Mike also is Legends of the 75th. Make sure you check out that podcast as well.
Please do.
Yep.
and then Sean is actually going to lead this one for us. He's got some.
Oh, really?
He's got some. He's got an outline. He wrote some stuff down.
All right, Cats and Cows, get ready.
So you want to be a podcaster?
I don't. Not after I saw the yard sale of wires that these cats went through.
Yeah.
But I will organize your stuff for you for a nominal fee. Yeah, if you pay for him to come teach our group the pistol lessons, then that'll be payment to me.
No,
And by the
man.
transitive
That's
product.
I'm trying to help Mike out.
I
so
got you.
That's tough.
Jeez.
We're wheeling and dealing now.
Yeah.
People don't know what we're talking
We're
about.
already in the ditch, and we
Yeah.
have an outline.
With a four-wheel
You are a
drive.
terrible podcast host.
What I would tell you is that we're going to delve into the impact that social media has had on the military as a community, and then what that means for us as veterans. And what I think we talk about when we would do the veterans, I'll go back real fast, is that I think people become a little more outspoken once they become a veteran. So they kind of let some things out that they held in beforehand. So we'll get to that towards the end. So we'll start off with the impact of social media on and in the military. And I will start out by just giving you an overview that when Rob came in, when I came in, when you came in,
The internet wasn't even
the
around.
internet wasn't around, right?
Nope.
It wasn't like people.
Bill Gates started that, right?
Sure.
No.
No, Al Gore.
Al Gore.
Al Gore invented
Why
the
did I say
internet.
Bill
Yeah.
Gates?
If you ask Al says.
Yeah, both of them are feminine. So yeah.
So when we joined, we went to basic training, and there was a payphone, and there was calling cards. Deployments had the prepaid phone cards, and you had a call station and satellites and all this other stuff that you had to use. And
A map and a compass.
Yeah, what are those? Land nav, dead reckon. Yeah, our phones. If you had a cordless phone at the house that had a range, the number on it with the megahertz or whatever, if that was larger, you were cool. Like I could make it to the mailbox.
True story. I can remember working where we did start getting in the Army the internet, and we actually had 1,200 baud. So think about today, right? You get like what, 5G?
Yeah, easily.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is 1,200 baud.
Yeah.
When it went to 2,400, we went double the speed. We thought we were the bomb diggity, back then. I mean, it was like huge. It was, things were rolling because you had to put the phone on the cradle.
That's so weird.
Just communicating at the speed of smell. Oh man! Why don't you just send a runner? It's going to beat
Yeah.
the message there, bro. It's
Yeah,
the securest form of communication. Anyway,
You had punch card computers that you slid in the slots and everything.
My father would tell me stories when he was in the Army, and he had to run secret documents in a briefcase and handcuffs to each of the commanders in the installation from his room with no windows. Right? That's probably the most secure, isn't it?
Yeah.
You think? Because there's not going to be any bleeding of information.
Well, but think about the old days of the landline. You remember the old phone? And
Okay,
stuff that
so
you-
what's the securest form of communication on the Alpha? Is it the landline or is it the runner?
Well, it's face-to-face communication, so it'd be the runner.
If you ever talk to Matt Streams again, Streams, if you can hear me, you're fucking wrong, dude. All right, so never mind. Sorry.
All right, get us back on track.
All right, so the impact of social media in the military, we were a closed community. So society only knew what members or veterans of the military would tell them about their experiences.
Or
And the
movies
only-
like Con Air and Rambo. Yeah.
So the only analogy that I could give you right now that would be fitting is if you think about, trying out for the combat applications groups of some sort, or a SMU or whatever, you only hear about what those tryouts, that assessment is like, but you'll never know unless you actually go. That's what the military used to be like. It was just hearsay, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
I see where you're going
right.
with that,
So, but nowadays it would be like if you were allowed to take a camera inside of their assessment selection. Everybody has an opinion, and plus now you have people within the military that are voicing their opinions and letting everybody know what life is like. So, unless you were actually in the military, you really don't know if what they're saying on social media is true or not. we can sit here and watch a whole bunch of military influencers and go, man, I can relate to that, or sounds like a dirtbag, right? Civilians don't know that. They don't know what they don't know. So and people definitely don't take things with a grain of salt. Like everything is the gospel coming off of the internet. So that's what I wanted to start off with. How has that affected, do you think, the disposition of the military, the esprit de corps, what's that happening? And I would love to hear from you, especially from a command sergeant major aspect.
Yeah.
What does that do for the organization, right? Is it good? Is it bad? How do you leverage that?
Yeah.
And then from you, having never seen the internet, whatever. When you came in,
Wait, they didn't have AOL at the Fold Gap?
you didn't let me finish my sentence. I know that was a long, dramatic pause.
Yes, it was.
I know the 1930s were rough, but check this out, right?
Go ahead, fire for effect.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think?
Teddy Roosevelt?
He was a Rough Rider. That's what he came in as.
Calf.
So, and then we can just let it flow from there. I mean, and what I'd like to get it going to, and we'll segue in there, is just how has it created a false sense of confidence for some people as they communicate, right? So you have, like, for instance, I know some folks that, maybe weren't as gregarious or outspoken when they were in, but then all of a sudden they come out and they have a platform where now all of a sudden they speak like they were everything, right? And they're just a little more confident. So there's a whole bunch of things that we can touch on.
Well, let me take you back to the old days then. So, you think about the days in the military, or even just in life in general, in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, when internet wasn't around. I mean, if you're old enough, probably in your late 30s, 40s, you probably owned a pager. And that was the way your parents got in contact with you and everything else. So we're talking even before that time period.
Yeah.
There wasn't any way to get in contact with one another, the soldiers and everything else. Other than just dialing up the phone and calling them. You didn't have email for mass communication. You actually had to stand in front of formation and put that information out in the morning. And you had, closed day formation. You had lunch formation. You had formations all the damn time so that you could put the information out in a manner in which people could stay up to date. You had the first sergeants that had the platoon sergeants and pretty much all day into different meetings and stuff like that as to what was going on. Squad leaders, team leaders ran the motor pool, ran, the training and everything else for the most part. So if you think back on that, it sounds crazy and it sounds, dinosaur, prehistoric. It was actually marvelous, right? Because we were well informed. Our leadership had to come down and tell us what the hell was going on. They couldn't rely on all of these other tools by which sometimes people don't use even effectively, to be able to communicate, or they don't do it properly, or like you were saying, they have, people communicate in different ways. Like I'll give you an example. I was talking about this the other day. You talk about the phone and everything. Some people use the phone to actually text other people, while the older people use the phones to call somebody because they'd rather talk to the person on the other end of the phone.
I make so many people mad by calling them.
Yeah.
Right. Why are you cold calling me?
Yeah.
It's called a cell phone.
Right.
And I'm not cold calling you because I know you.
Yeah. Like
So-
I called you today.
Yeah. So, I mean, later on,
How fucking dare you?
What a jerk.
So when, the internet came around, and then, of course, we're in combat, now you're all of a sudden, even prior to that, having individuals walking around with a cell phone, of which they're, like you're saying, they're videotaping everything and all of that. So back in the day, we didn't have to worry about that from an OPSEC standpoint. That was one last thing that we had to be concerned about as officers, non-commissioned officers, whatever the case, as leaders. There was a lot of good around that.
Yeah.
You did have to teach map reading. You couldn't just rely on a GPS. You had to understand where you are by looking around and looking at your terrain and identifying that point on the map. And when you get out in the desert, that was hard as hell to do, because that mountain over there is a hell of a lot further than what you think it is when you're looking at the map. And so those types of things were really kind of marvelous in understanding, basic soldiering. And when we talk about, especially as non-commissioned officers here, we talk about basic soldiering, it's you always want to be good at the basics, right? You want to be at the best at the basics. And map reading is one of those things that I think is a lost art for a lot of people because they've relied too much on different things. So technology is where I was going, not just social media. Technology changed the way the military reacted. Social media was a tool of technology in which soldiers, it wasn't part of their day job, but they brought it into the day job.
Yeah, well, in most cases, it's become a distractor, right? And we talk about, technology. It can be a combat multiplier. In the other instances that we were talking about, figuring that it comes out fast enough for us to use, and it's not obsolete by the time we receive it. But from a social media aspect, I think it's almost become, from a leadership standpoint, it's a distractor, right? Yeah. From an operations standpoint, as Brigade Operations Sergeant Major, one of the first things that our Major Hamilton had us do was, hey, we need to get that cell phone lockbox out front. Yeah. This is going to be a secure area. We need to let people know, bring your stuff in here. Here's a cell phone lockbox. That wasn't a thing before, right? You just had to be on the list. S2 gave you the list. Can they get in here? Do they have the permissions? Do they have the clearance? When you go into meetings, you can say feedback is a gift, right? So if I'm looking at you, you're not looking at me. That's some body language. That's good feedback. That means that you don't care what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
No, sir. I was typing everything that you were telling me on my cell phone.
Right.
I mean, we've had lieutenants that were like that. They lived off their cell phones. That's all they've known.
Now they have
so
apps
they were
that do that.
literally typing the notes on their
Well,
cell
you had
phone.
to have a pen.
Yeah.
Something to write on.
I mean-
And privates would pick up their cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I've got the Sergeant Major Commander small clip, 5x8 with a pen, right? Or I could have my phone, but I know the optics of that is pretty bad. Sitting on a podcast going, yeah, Rob, I know what you're talking about. It's the same thing. What do you? I mean, I think it's gotten to the point to where does it degrade the leadership capabilities of folks? Like you're taking the legs out from underneath them because what you're doing is you're getting soldiers that are talking about experiences, have anecdotally telling how bad their commands are, or they're given basically a command climate survey on TikTok or Instagram where they're talking about all the leadership failures. Like, do you have a leg to stand on? Because now they're substantiated with likes and comments and not just Private Joe Snuffy that's out there going, well, I don't like it. Well, nobody else agrees with you. Bullshit. I've got 172,000 people that say you're full of shit, right? So what does that do for the command?
Yeah, you got to look at social media and technology overall just as a tool. Okay, but your default has to be, just like Rob was saying, is that face-to-face interaction. Because when you look at somebody's, body language, when you see their, mannerisms, their facial expressions, they can also see yours, the authenticity behind your voice and, how you're communicating and everything else. Plus, you can immediately navigate misunderstandings, a miscommunication. We've all sent that email or that text that's been completely taken out of context and misunderstood.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still got to look at technology and social media as a viable tool as a leader. An example would be, I'll give a couple different examples. Free cop as far as timelines go. I remember a platoon sergeant. This is back before emails and everything else. Literally, a runner comes over for the sergeant major, says, "Hey, the sergeant major says he needs so and so and so and so." And the platoon sergeant, this really gruff guy, goes, "Tell him to go fuck himself." And he's like, "You sure?" He's like, "Yep." And the runner takes off. He runs. He goes down the stairs. We're on the 3rd floor, and then the platoon sergeant huffs and puffs, opens his door, waits for the guy to come run out. He goes, "Stop. Tell him I'll send the 3 guys over here in a little bit." And then the runner takes off. The point is that if that had been an email, what's the potential of that platoon sergeant typing that up and then sending that because of the speed of communication, the speed of information? And we've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all fell victim to that. In a moment of, a moment of passion, that's where expressions like, don't send an email angry.
Yeah.
They come from. Well, the same thing with technology, and using social media as a means. The thing I would tell guys, when I would see shit like that, them bashing, them complaining about something, them video cameraing black mold in their barracks and, posting it to Army WTF moments or whatever, is Stop. First, what are you doing about this?
Yeah.
Because you are in the best position to solve your problem. Well, there's black mold here. Understand. But do you, as me, as a SRM agent, want me to solve that? If the answer is yes, then that's fine. But my first question is what have you done about it? What have you actually done about it to solve the problem? And, black mold, maybe that's a little bit egregious, but anything that we're talking about.
I know what you're talking about because the WTF,
I don't even.
the one with the disgusting room, and the leader's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Well, where were you the last 6 months when he was trashing this room?
Yeah, exactly. You obviously were not in his room, But like social media has created this thing where these soldiers can post this, these leaders. That's the bad part.
Yeah.
But it's like you're spending the time to create this TikTok. What are you doing to actually solve the damn problem? And it creates this lazy leadership, this complaining leadership, and it's a snapshot of things that are just inaccurate. The Army is not inundated with black mold across the barracks.
No.
We don't have contaminated water on our installations like they do out in Hawaii. Like all these different kind of things. That's not the Army. That's not the military by and large. It's a snapshot of a small demographic. You talked about the aircraft carrier and all those people TikToking. Those are 4 people.
Yeah. No.
On an aircraft carrier, I don't even know how many people are on an aircraft carrier. Probably like 20,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no idea.
But
I have no accurate number for that.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct when you say that. We know that.
Right. I know.
Right.
The
But
general
it reaches
public.
a population where we're so, and I say we, I'm generalizing, we are so impressionable by the things that we see.
It's the same model that big media does. It's sensationalist, right?
Yeah.
If this one thing happens, it has to be happening everywhere.
And we catastrophize.
Yes.
Did you guys see, if you don't follow a lot of college football sports, but if you saw the Georgia game with Ole Miss, and of course, Ole Miss ends up beating Georgia. At the end of the game, students end up rushing the field. There happens to be a Georgia player that's out on the field that's, of course, kind of trapped, with all the student body there from Ole Miss. But at the same token, there are family members, because he happens to be from a close area and stuff, that came there, and friends that are kind of surprise him while he's out there in the field and are jumping up and down with him. Like, in other words, not like he's celebrating.
Yeah. It's his family.
Yeah.
It's his family.
But the internet destroyed that dude.
The internet destroyed him, where he came out
Yes.
and had to put a statement out there explaining this whole story. And I felt so sad for this young man whose life is destroyed because how many people are going to even see that statement? Because now the video is viral.
Yeah.
To your point.
No.
To everything we're talking about here.
It's about context.
So how much of that stuff ends up being bad context and not necessarily the truth?
I think a lot
of it.
I think most of it. But the reality of it is that as a leader, if we're staying in the military realm, is news, influence, and information comes out through social media. And you as a leader, if you don't exist there, you're not part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Your soldiers are being influenced by what's on social media. So therefore you have to exist, because you're not going to curb the miscontext. You're not going to curb that kind of stuff. It's going to happen whether or not, but you can at least try to occupy their attention and redirect their attention to the positive things that are happening.
Like, hey, this is a good dude to watch or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, check out the Mentors for Military podcast. Those guys really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time they have that guy Mike on, like he's just a wealth of information. I know, he's just amazing, and Sean's decent too.
Our ratings go up.
I know, right? But no, you will see leaders that like I'm not any military leaders, and okay, I got it. Special operations, it's a little bit different, but conventional, the rest of the military, they're like, I don't believe in that social media. Well, no one asked you what you believed in. No one asked you what you liked.
Yeah.
Are you using the tools at your disposal, Commander?
Are you engaged with your soldiers?
Because they're there, and that's where they're getting most of their information.
Yep.
The best thing, one of the best situations that really, really brought this to light was my son. My son, at the time when we were in Germany, I was a CSM, he's 15, 16. I came to the realization, because of Snapchat, he knew more about my soldiers than I did.
Wow.
Because he was on Snapchat with them.
Isn't that wild?
And I could curb situations and curb issues from happening,
And it disappears quickly too.
you know, before they actually became issues. I mean, literally, he called me. I remember one night. Now I can talk about it. He calls me one night and he says, "Hey, Dad, you really need to get over to the water tower." And there's a water tower that was behind the Class 6. And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "You have a bunch of soldiers that are about to climb it." And I'm like, "Oh, shit." And I was like, "Well, what are they going to do?" He's like, "I don't know. They're like challenging each other to like hang off the side and everything else." So I freaking go over there, you know, and freaking sure as shit, you know, about 8 of my soldiers are on Snapchat, sitting there challenging each other, go higher, hang off the side, hang off the ladder, and all this different kind of stuff. That's just like one situation. That was my son. I'm not on Snapchat, but my point is, you know, and maybe that's kind of a stupid example, but they're there. The information flows there. You got to be there too. And your PAO is a huge asset.
Yeah.
One of the biggest assets that you have in command, and you got to be using them.
Yeah.
And then your lieutenants and, you know, your staff sergeant population is about the best because they're right at that perfect kind of mix and age where they're going to be on those platforms. They're going to know how to use those platforms. They're going to be able to keep up with the pace of information on those platforms because us old guys, we can't keep up with that shit.
Yeah.
And they can elicit change because they are the people that are eliciting change.
Yep.
And the PAO, like you said, is in my mind more vital now. And I will not caveat. I will add on to what you're saying. That's a joke that we've been talking about. Let me piggyback off of that. It would behoove me. What I was legal with PAO can be your best friend as a command team. Just because, you know, they're in the know. You mind if I rewind just for a second?
Yeah.
We were talking about, you had asked the question, you know, is context important? Is stuff taken out of context? And I'll give you an example of one that wasn't negative, but where people just hold fast to their beliefs in something that is absolutely false. So we had a captain, I think right before you showed up, who deployed, came back from deployment, very young looking captain, had his, you know, SFAB garb on, brown beret. His son plays on Clemson football team.
Yep.
And they've got the video of him sitting in the tunnel waiting for his son to come off of the pre-game warm-ups. And as his son comes up, he slaps him on the chest and he goes, "Hey, boy." And, you know, it's a heartfelt moment and everybody's, you know,
think I
"Oh my God,
remember
that's
this."
amazing," right?
Yeah.
So that captain is all white. His son is half black because the mother is black. That's his son. But if you look at them, they don't look like father-son.
Yeah.
They do look like brother or best friends. I know the man intimately. Like, I know him. I know his family. I know, and they're great, great people. I'm looking in the comments, and to hear the people who are like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely his brother," and then I'm reading comments. They're like, "Oh, that can't be his son. That's definitely, you don't know what you're talking about." And then you'd have other people lying about it, like, "I know them personally. That's his brother." No, that's his son.
Yeah.
But I had to do everything in my power not to comment because there's so much passion behind the lies and the ignorance or whatever you want to call it that it's just not even worth my time.
Your drop of truth isn't going to dilute all of the false.
And I'm talking about my drop of truth is huge.
Yep.
But it really doesn't matter because they're not willing to listen to it. And that's even a good situation. There's nothing negative about it. But we as a society have taken that, and I think the comment section is purgatory.
Yeah.
Everything up here, you get to decide what you want to decide. But the first thing you do when you see something that's just out of pocket on the internet is what?
Go to
We
the
go
comments.
straight to the comments, except on our podcast.
Yeah.
And this is a
You add the leading right down to that.
Hey, I will tell you that, you know, there's something to be said for podcasts. We look at the, you know, the presidential, you know, election and everything else, and, you know, how podcasts become a platform for a source of truth and a source of information. I mean, you know, political parties aside, JD Vance, you know, one of the biggest comments was, you know, about he went on the Theo Von show, and people were like, "This dude's just normal. Like, he's kind of crude. He's kind of rash. You know, you can tell he's a former Marine." Like, the point is that, like, between those two podcasts, you know, people were viewing that more than they were watching the news.
Yeah.
You know?
but there's relatability behind that.
Yeah.
You didn't take the bait.
But here's the deal though.
What's
in
that?
everybody's situation, everything that we have, it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative, or you're trying to send a good message or not. We always find people that are willing to try to just make the comment section that purgatory, that hey, let me suck you into this. What do they call them? Trolls.
Trolls.
Yeah.
They just troll you into
Oh,
something.
they hide behind account names that are supposed to, are meant to hide their identity.
Well, they're
And
called
that's why I
keyboard
say
warriors.
you didn't take the bait because there was a comment left on your episode.
Oh, actually, I wasn't even trying to bait them in.
Oh, I thought you were.
You know, so there was a comment that was left on the episode, the very first episode I actually did with you guys. And, I don't want to sit here and dive into it, but, I find it comical because, like, the individual that left it, says that he knows me intimately well, and maybe he does, and I haven't done a bunch of homework on it, but, like, if you really did serve with me, then you know me well enough and know the people that I know well enough to know that your pseudonym, your username, will take me a grand total of maybe like 15 to 20 minutes to figure out who the hell you are, And then the comments that you left too, it's like at the same time, like, man, you want to talk about taking things out of context. Like, wow, what's wrong with you? And it's just this thing that, like, a good rule of thumb is don't make a comment that you're not willing to say to somebody's face.
We were talking about that offline.
Because, if you're gonna hide behind this identity or the fact that no one knows who the hell you are or anything on Facebook, then, man, you need to, like, reassess your life.
They call it pseudonym.
Yeah.
Yeah, pseudonym. Yeah.
Well, then you're worried about the community eating its own. We talk about that all the time.
All the time.
And if you're hiding behind a fake account, a burner, or you just have this pseudonym that you think you're
It's already enough if you're an individual that uses their name and
Yeah.
actually are toxic and try to bring down another
But
person.
I think veterans, they, like, just hop on the internet, and it's like just this huge venting session for them. They might not even be using fake names.
Yeah.
They're using their own names, and they're just throwing out this stuff. Like, recently, like, this guy, he threw out a comment about something, on this forum that I was on. And I was like, and I kind of went back and forth, and I just stopped. I was like, listen, man, let me just ask you a question. Do you have kids? He comments back, yeah, I have kids. I was like, more specifically, do you have a daughter? He's like, yeah, I have a daughter. I was like, would you say these things to your daughter?
Yep.
Then why in the fuck are you posting them for the world to see on the internet?
The internet didn't go away either.
Yeah. Like, what is
internet's forever.
wrong with you? Like, this is not okay, and he's a veteran, like, listen, man, the whole veteran, I'm angry and I'm grumpy because I serve. Shut up. Stop.
Yep.
What are you angry about?
Change the perception.
What are you really, really, really angry about? Well, the military, they freaking rode me hard and, freaking beat me up and everything. Dude, you joined the military.
Yeah.
What in the hell would you think you're going to be freaking doing back massages
Yeah.
and freaking, taking a stroll, in the pool? Like,
Yeah.
hello, watch a war movie before you join, man. Does that look like it's good for your body?
Yeah.
Does it look like it's good for your head? What are you so angry about?
Exactly.
Like, well, I've seen things that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's why few join. You signed on the dotted line, dumbass. And if you're angry about it, man, you're going to die angry. Like, get over it. For God's sakes, get over it. You joined, you signed on the line, you raised your hand, you said, this is what I'm willing to do. The Army paid you a check, and now probably still continues to pay you a check.
Yeah.
Oh, and, Veterans Day, sure, Memorial Day, I know they're supposed to be separate, but I know some guys, struggle with Veterans Day, because of survivor's guilt and everything else. Listen, you lived. Like, be stoked about that. Like, be happy you're alive while others aren't. And you should be living for them, and they wouldn't want you to be angry. They wouldn't want you to hold on to it. They wouldn't want you to do all these different kind of things. They would want you to live your best life, but more importantly, they would want you to continue to impact people's lives in a positive way, and demonstrate to them, to the rest of the world that your service made you better for society as a whole and changed something for the better. At the end of the day, just
Absolutely.
do that. Stop with the angry grunt. Like, you don't have to be angry. The freaking personality of the angry veteran, that shit's old.
Yeah,
Like,
quit screaming at clouds.
Well,
yeah,
like
let it go, man.
I agree with that, and the other part of that is, if you think generationally speaking, our veteranship, the era that we're growing up as veterans right now, is a lot better than the Vietnam vets when they came back. So there's really not
100%.
a lot for us to complain. Now, there's people will lump in, military service and all that bullshit I had to go through with, and God bless the VA. They bitch about the VA, and maybe it's their local VA, and something's happening.
Don't get me wrong, the VA sucks,
but they lump it all in, and then they group it as a veteran experience. I would tell you, and this isn't for everybody, and I don't want my friends that are having hard times as veterans be upset with me, but I would tell you that the company
if they're having a hard time, I want them to call me. They could be upset with me, but they should still call
me personally. But what I'm saying is the company that I keep, the veteran company that I keep, have gone through some hard times, have PTSD, have had have struggles, but have also persevered in their own ways and have made the best of it, and aren't overtly talking so much shit about an organization that at one point was putting food on the table for their family. And maybe the hardships they went through were, a lack of financial awareness on their part, and not necessarily what the military was giving them.
All right, let's dive into that. The military pays for everything. Anything that you pay for in the military is an assumed expense that you take on. The military, literally, your salary in the military is for you to spend on anything. The Army pays for everything else.
We had that discussion. Remember, we said that one person, and I use his name, but I've got one guy here that owns property and 2 houses, put 3 kids through college, and has every pair of Jordans that you could ever think of, and is still doing amazing. And then you can come over to a contemporary that, same age, that is not living that same lifestyle. That's a difference of personal choice, and that is, decades in the making. And that's not the Army's fault per se.
No.
There may have been some couple of instances where you needed to spend more money, but not 2 decades worth, right?
Yeah.
So that's right in line with what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think just overall, what I'm really trying to say is that, we've got to shift the narrative. If you're the veteran, and I go through this, don't think I don't go through this. There's days I stand in my office and I'll close my door and I'll be like, oh my God, why is everybody in this world retarded? And I got to breathe, I got to rub my ears. Okay, I need to help them understand.
Yeah.
And I'll have my moments. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. I want to go sergeant major on them. I want to go first sergeant on them, but I can't. My point is if you're that veteran and you're just like, people don't get me, people don't understand me, you are in the best position to solve your problem. What are you doing to try to bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Help them understand. Help them understand where you're coming from. Help them understand what you're going through and what you're struggling. No, they don't know what you went through. No, they never will. But that's not their fault.
Yeah.
That's why we chose to serve, so that they didn't. I'll just put it to you this way. I really, really hoped that in serving my country for 25 years, that I would never, ever have a child that would serve in the military. I didn't want them to. I felt I'd done enough that they would never have to. Okay. I wanted to take that burden on so no one else had to take that burden on. Okay. Unfortunately, my kids don't listen for shit, So I got one in the Air Force, got another one thinking about the Army. Definitely my daughter's probably going in the military as well. But my point is listen, I served so that those people didn't have to. Yeah. That's what I chose to do.
Yeah.
So if I bring it back to the social media, what do you think that's happening now in social media? I mean, other than the veteran community, we'll talk about the people that are in right now. How do you think that's affecting future recruiting and the things that are going on?
It's highlighting the man. I mean, Army WTF. All they do is, I will say they go in ebb and flows. Sometimes they highlight a lot of awesome things, but if their crisis, they're just taking advantage of crises, and negative things that are happening. And it was supposed to be a joke, and it was supposed to be funny. We're all supposed to laugh about it. But now, when they start calling commanders out, listen, you have no context. You have literally no context.
Yeah.
None.
I know the Army has reached out to them and actually.
Oh, we have
like PAO.
Oh, we
tied in directly.
We
to
we
them.
have a ton. We did a ton in first SVAB. We even did it in 2CR, and we're like, we would just contact them and say, hey, listen, you posted this, fine, you do you, but here's the whole story.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to like, the 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have their time in the fame or in the limelight and stuff. And so I think social media gives you that platform that you can either hide behind and create the pseudonym that you can live behind, whether it's back in the day it was writing a book, or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's, creating an account, put it on social media or a number of different accounts that you can then go out there and manage to state whatever it is that you want to state. But it gives you that fame, that credence. Now, I saw somebody over here did this. I'll create this video. And then when I start getting enough followers, it's that dopamine we talked about as well that wants to get fed. Oh, let me go ahead and create another video. Let me do it again.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you may get sponsorship or you may get whatever, and you become this influencer that is out there putting information, good or bad, because they're looking for that fame and that dopamine to keep living.
There are positive military.
I was about to
No,
say
I'm not
that.
going to say that.
100% are.
I gotta highlight guys like Lord of Lips,
Lord of Lips,
One Punch,
One Punch Daddy,
yeah.
Mandatory Fun Day.
Those guys are doing. Those are the three that are on top of it.
Buttersworth.
Those guys are doing awesome things.
They're doing the
They
Lord's work.
absolutely
Right?
are. They are. They really are.
But they bring to light, and we say this for those who don't follow military influencers, and by no means do we get paid by any of these guys. But I would tell you that if you want a real look into
there's
what's
another one
going
too.
on, these are the type of folks you want to look at because they're actually bringing truth to light through comedy, but not egregiously.
Yeah, they're not doing it in like a deprecating way.
No,
You know,
it's
they're
just
like,
highlighting.
They're not highlighting a death at NTC.
No.
And that's some accounts.
Yeah.
Will say, hey, these, they've had this many heat cats at JRTC this rotation.
Yeah.
This unit sucks. Or no, those three dudes suck at drinking water.
Yeah, well, and that like comes down to the whole thing. Who ends up catching the flack for that?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Some
commanders.
brigade commander.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think it's a brigade commander's fault
That someone's not hydrated? Yeah, exactly.
Come on. If he's sitting out there making sure guys are drinking 2 quarts of water, he is not doing his job.
What's the point of decentralized
There's a
command
bigger problem.
if
Yeah.
he's getting victimized for
But I mean, you see like brigade commanders and garrison commanders getting relief for some of this stuff, and it's like, no, like who's the sergeant? Let's
How does that kid have ankle deep trash in his room?
Yeah, right.
That type of stuff shouldn't be on a punishment level on the same echelon as all the sharp stuff that we were dealing with and everything else. They're by no means are they the same. I think we just get so gun shy, especially when social media started becoming prevalent. Everybody was like, "Holy shit, we have a camera on us!" And so any little infraction, anything that happened and showed up, it was a knee-jerk reaction.
I just always ask my guys to make sure when they tag me in it to tag my name right.
Yeah.
I'm sure you want to blast me on social media. Let's rock and roll.
I was class 67 for the academy.
Wait.
Where
Was
were
it
you?
class 67?
Were you 66, 67, or 68? One of the two.
What year?
One of the three. You named off three.
2017.
Yeah, we're in the same class.
Yeah, we're same class. So,
It's so fucking
do you remember being in the master bedroom?
Oh, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never mind.
Jake, he told the story.
Oh, did he tell it?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to.
Jake Stockdale.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, the master bedroom is the nickname for the large auditorium at the Sergeant's Major Academy.
And it's called that because it's almost impossible not to fall asleep because it's literally like the most boring shit.
But it's also like a soundproofed room that's hot, and it's
miserable.
almost like an assessment and selection by itself, and there's a psychological test.
Best thing is my SGL told me, hey, if you're going to make appointments, make them during the auditorium time because that's the non-mandatory time.
You're not graded for that.
I can't remember. Did he actually say this on the episode or after?
I don't know, but I'm going to let you know what the story is. So
Sorry, Jim.
what ends up happening?
I think he's out now, isn't he? Or
No, he's
almost?
still in.
Oh, okay.
So what ends up happening is as you start to leave your individual classes, everybody comes together for whatever brief that you're doing in this large auditorium. And I mean, you've had Jake on the show, super knowledgeable, one of the most professional non-commissioned officers I've ever met. and he's got a sense of humor that is just beyond your imagination. Love him to death.
There were negative comments there as well. There is always usually on every episode. But
Oh yeah, I'm not even worried about that. So,
But it was just to clear the air. It was by a civilian contractor in Germany that he sounded like he kind of might have done the same thing that you did, where he held them accountable.
Oh yeah, they hate that shit.
So Jake comes in, and we're all talking, and he makes a comment about being tired because we're doing college level, it's master's level classes that we're doing, having to write papers and sitting through classes. And so when you come to the master bedroom, he lays down in the walkway and pretends like he's asleep. I'm talking like seconds, right? Nothing crazy. He's not being a complete dirt
take
bag.
a picture of him.
No, they actually took a picture of him without him
he didn't know
knowing
about it.
So he gets up from it and he sits down. Somehow this photograph makes it onto the WTF, and the caption says something along the lines of, "Hey, the next time
Naps
you're
really do happen in the master bedroom."
yeah, they do. Yeah. So next time they tell you not to fall asleep during a class, completely out of context. I mean, but the knee-jerk reaction is that it made it up to the leadership of the Sergeant Major Academy. He had to go stand on the carpet to go explain himself. And in his mind, he's like, "Are you kidding me?" That's the reach that this had. And I'm talking, and then since then, that one incident, I swear we had people out in and around the Sergeant Major Academy just taking pictures of every little infraction. Like we had a guy that parked up on the curb because remember the parking lot across the space wasn't big enough for a normal car. Maybe it was for a motorcycle. Nobody knew. So he took his truck. He's in the lines, but he's also on the gravel. And of course, they took a picture of it and they put it out there. Even Sergeant Majors to park on the grass.
We literally got the nickname "the classic can't get it right."
Yeah, because it was social media. It caught fire, and so anybody and
these
everybody.
are sergeants majors that are out there taking potential.
No.
Who's taking the videos?
You have an entire armored division out there. You have an entire air defense artillery
that was
organization
taking photos of you guys.
because they have to First Armed Division, in order to get onto Biggs Army Airfield from Fort Bliss proper, had to drive through and pass the Sergeant's Major Academy if they took that route.
But they weren't
to get
inside the building, inside the bedroom.
No. That picture
That
got
was
out.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he sent that to somebody that ended up making it to somebody else. Completely unnecessary. So what it comes down to is that I guess as a sergeant major, I got to be professional 24/7. Can't say anything. Nothing that's outside of policy, and everything that I'm going to talk about has to do with.
I don't believe that.
Well, that was the comments that were kind of that came from that one incident, right? That we can't have fun, and in our experiences as sergeants majors, those are the ones you want to be around, are the ones that can't have fun. Look, I don't give a shit if you walk on the grass.
Yeah.
We do push-ups on the grass. Why would I tell you not to walk on the fucking grass? Right? We don't care about that, but that's the running joke. Walk on the grass.
I think where sergeant majors get themselves in trouble is that they don't spend enough time, or senior leaders, they don't spend enough time with their soldiers getting to know them.
Yep.
That because you're going to have those mess ups. You're going to have that moment where you yell at a soldier or something happens, but if your soldiers know you well enough, or at least there's enough of a reputation of who you truly are, they're going to go, okay, that was just like a one-off. I'm not going to sit there, and I know him well enough, because don't get me wrong. I made the Army W2F plenty of times, for different incidents. And it was actually great when I did, because I always loved how the comments.
They tag you?
No, they didn't, unfortunately, bastards. But dudes would see that stuff and they'd come to your defense. And it'd be and then the comments and the narrative would change in the actual comments, one was literally at first SVAB. So I did a video because I was very fond of, when I was over at 2CR, I'd do Friday videos. And the PA would post them hey, have a great weekend. It's a long weekend, stay out of trouble, all this different kind of stuff. Appreciate everybody's work on this exercise, and they'd post it, right? Well, they put at the bottom a scrolling banner that said First SVAB's Assistance Brigade, Command Sergeant Major, Well, somebody stopped it right when it said First Security ass.
Yeah.
And snapshot that and send it to Army WTF. It's like, oh my God. Like, you know, so basically they said first security's ass, you know? And what was funny is at first, you know, there were some jokes, there was some funny stuff, but then everybody was like, that's America's ass, like the Captain America thing, you know? And they like went on this whole thing. It was actually fucking great.
I think that's a good way to wrap this up, is it in the sense that if you're well known, if you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, and you're respected and you're liked, and you know you live within that ethical left and right limit, nothing on social media should be able to hurt you, because if the masses know who you are, the soldiers know who you are, they know your substance, they know your values and your beliefs, then you just become America's ass, and that's as far as it goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it gets tougher at echelon, you know, because you got more and more soldiers, but you know, you just got to spend your time with them, you know, as much as you possibly can. You got to fight the technology. My emails are going to still be there tonight. Like, they're going to be there. They're always going to be there. Sure, there's going to be, instead of 50, there's going to be 200 of them, you know? I mean, shit, when I was in 2CR, I got an average of 200 to 350 emails every single day, you know? They're still going to be there. But that doesn't mean that I got to lock in my office
and wait for it to bing.
Wait for it to bing. Like, get out there and get what it forces you to do is you get really, really good at just realizing most of the emails don't fucking matter for shit. You can ignore half of them and things still happen, and you can get out there and do the things that you need to do and spend time with your soldiers, you know?
That's glass ball, rubber ball, right?
You know,
emails are rubber balls, right?
Yeah.
The relationship you have with your shoulders, that's a glass ball. You drop that, it's breaking.
Yeah. And it gets hard with, you know, it gets hard with technology, and I get it, you know, and, you know, the commander can call you, you know, when you're out trying to spend time with the soldiers, but, you know, you just got to find a way to do it.
Yep.
You know, because that's what the soldiers, the amount of times, you know, and I'm sure Sean was probably the same way. The amount of time I heard, Sergeant Major, what are you doing here? Not like that.
Yeah.
What I meant was they were surprised that a Sergeant Major was doing this. He was doing this, you know, for first SFAB. A Sergeant Major was out there doing an E&E lane with the team. They're like, what? Like, why are you out here, Sergeant Major? Well, because you're
Why wouldn't I be?
Well, you're out here. Why? This sounds like fun. This is a hell of a lot better than sitting around answering emails. Like, this is awesome, you know, or like, you know, on a 12-mile road march in the middle of the night. Like, Sergeant Major, why are you out here?
Running a rifle range.
You know, like, why not? Why wouldn't I be out here? Yeah. Like, this is way better than what the other bullshit I got to do, you know? And it's a balance, and it gets hard, but that shit spreads like wildfire. You know, there was a story, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to make this, you know, about me, but, you know, I'm just trying to serve it as an example, okay? So we were doing a pre-ranger course over at 2nd Cavalry Regiment, right? And part of the last thing they had to do was basically rock the entire impact area, okay? And I can't remember how long it was, but they started in the afternoon, and they ended like probably about 07 the next day, you know, and they did some stuff along the way. They changed out leadership, you know, just preparatory for Ranger School, right? And then we'd have a huge breakfast. Their commanders would come because it was a final event, and if they made it, we made a very big deal about it, right? So I go and I do this with this pre-ranger course, and we're driving by one of the striker gunnery ranges, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh shit. That's one of my platoons from Ghost Troop. So I'm like, hey, just keep on walking. I know where you're going, you know, you're on the damn road, you know. I was like, just keep on walking. I'll catch back up with you. And I just come running out of the wood line, like onto the range. And I'm like, Sergeant First Class Lewis. I remember it now, actually. I was like, Sergeant First Class Lewis, get your hands out of your pockets. And he's like, who the fuck? Sergeant Major, and he like takes his hands out of his pockets. He's like, where'd you come from? I was like, how's the gunnery range going? You know, and I like asked a couple questions and stuff. I was like, all right, cool guys, catch you later. And I just ran off back into the woods. Here was the rumor. The Sergeant Major rucks the impact area at night by himself. and I remember my commander was like, were you out there by yourself? I was like, no, I was with the pre-ranger course, but we're never going to correct anybody if anybody ever says it, because that is a phenomenal rumor to be going around.
Exactly.
Because maybe it'll make guys do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, that's how you use it to your advantage. And then full circle, it's, you don't want to fight the technology itself. You want to work with it and use it to your favor. Much like we talked about with Army recruiting, you know, if you fight the the technology and the social media, you're not going to get what you need. But
No.
you know, Army recruiting has used social media as a method of bringing folks in. As a command team, use social media to bring folks in. And I think we've outlined a few folks that, you know, are out there spreading the good word, even if it is a little embarrassing. We know it's honest. We know it's true. So, awesome. Thanks for all your insight.
Good deal.